I had trained in Poitiers on the Wednesday before and with the programme Danny had sent me, but as we got to October the 1st, I didn't feel well. The worrying thing was my new court date for the appeal court in Poitiers was in a week, on the 7th of October, my birthday. I couldn't decide if that was a good or bad omen, but they now had my appeal file. The appeal court could now see, with the file, the police photo showing the mysterious moving and then vanishing vital evidence, the plastic wheel-hub and front bumper. There was also that little matter of cause of death, alcohol and medication, plus medical records of an 85-year-old. Any judge could see that this was essential information, a lawful and necessary procedure of investigation to go through in any case, never mind one in which someone is charged with double murder. My appeal file also showing the grave mistakes of Maurice Pascal and Christopher Lindon in their reports, plus the unlawful, non-preservation of evidence, the vehicles being contaminated, damaged and not preserved. On the 2nd of October 2020 in the afternoon, I received an email from Elisa Pilasser, court clerk at the appeal court in Poitiers. It stated that from the information they received on the 23rd of January, let me repeat that again, on the 23rd of January 2020, and they contact me now with just over 4 days before the court date. Game still being played, and they had something up their sleeves to get around this one. Have I received a copy of procedures? They wait till now to ask me, and no doubt they won't bother to send it in my native language of English, which I have a legal right to. My answer was no. This legal document arrived by normal post on the 9th of October, 2 days after the court date. How many laws are they allowed to break or ignore? It appears as many as they like, and repeatedly. That's their scales of justice. I was extremely ill. It was like going back to Nantes Hospital when I had that excruciating pain and diarrhea. I spent the next 4 days on the toilet with a bowl on my knee, both ends challenging my desire to live. I was not eating, barely drinking and trying to throw the animal food in and water them before I had an accident in my pants. Thinking, I wish I had some of those nappies that they had put me in Nantes Hospital. I was so ill, sat on the toilet, I daren't leave it. But the vomiting as well as the diarrhea being extreme pain. A couple of times I fainted in the process, woke up on the bathroom floor and then had to start cleaning up after myself. I really thought if I died before being able to say my piece in the appeal court, that would not be fair. But what part of the last nearly 5 years has been fair? I didn't care if I died, but if I was still alive on the 7th of October, on my 56th birthday, I would be in that appeal court. I would just have to wear a pad, and if I had an accident while stood there in the courtroom, so be it. It summed up the whole situation anyway. Full of shit. But I would be there. It's time the truth got told. How bloody naive of me. I never called the doctor, because then I wouldn't be able to go to my appeal and she probably would have sent me to hospital. By the 6th of October, I only needed the toilet once, and I managed to eat some plain rice and a slice of toast. Mel and Davina were coming with me, and David was going to meet us there. I drove, I knew the routine. I used it every week to get to my gym and to see Harvey at university. I had a peace within on the morning of the appeal court. It surely couldn't be like the 15th of April 2019. This was the appeal courts. They were used to seeing injustices and correcting them by realising the mistakes and the unlawfulness that had been served in the other courts. We got there in good time and got parked. The appeal court was massive and looked like Versailles on a smaller scale. Harvey was there. He had a lecture around 4 o'clock, so he would have to be leaving to get to that. We had to wait a while outside, but eventually we could go in with our masks on. We then had to wait outside the courtroom. There were many different ones. Raposo was there for Allianz Insurance Company, not me. He looked uncomfortable, but I had this calmness within me. I didn't need to hang my head. I knew that I had been in a very wicked, cruel game, and the players knew deep in their beings that I had been made a scapegoat. They also knew that things had and were still hidden. Both Raposo and Geraldine Dauphine, the Dupont's solicitor, could not look at me and appeared very nervous. Something had happened to me in my accident, and throughout my traumatic journey, I just knew things. I suppose I always had, from being really young, but now it was clearer and went so much deeper. It's as if I could see a person's soul, their heart, guilt, lies, and personal sadness so clearly. They both looked hot under the collar. I watched them and I mentally sent them forgiveness and peace and a prayer that they would not continue down the same path in the future. But it was their decision. If they wanted to continue searching for power, importance, ego and money, their souls just couldn't or weren't allowed to see how destructive and debilitating these things are to their soul's journey. It would not be good for their souls. On this day, there was only one family member, Dominique Dupont, but another son, I think, arrived later. There were other appeals going on in the same court, and we were in and out a bit and delayed. So Harvey had to leave before it was my slot. As we waited, a woman approached me and said she was called at the last minute to replace the other translator that I had been notified of when I got the new court date, and she would be my translator. My immediate thought was, here we go again, games again. They know I have to have a translator, my gut telling me this one did not look up to the job, way too nervous. As if she wasn't used to being there. I had to stand in front of 3 judges, the President, Mrs. Isabelle Lacure, and 2 counsellors, Mrs. Delphine Rodier and Mrs. Delphine Portel. To the left was the public prosecutor, Mrs. de la Landelle, to debate Mr. Hervé Devard's delivery. Geraldine Dauphine, to the left also, Hugo Raposo, there for Allianz, to the right. My interpreter wasn't even registered with the court, so I had to take an oath before the court. So my gut was on point again, and she didn't fail to prove why she was not registered. It's just part of the game. Silence a person, but do it so it appears to be within the law. This was further demonstrated to me when one of the 3 judges sat in front of me asked if I had seen and received all the information and was I happy to continue and ready to continue. I'd received nothing, but I said I was happy to continue because I knew my appeal file had been received because I got it confirmed by AR Sign 4 and received notification back in January 2020. I did not know at this point that they hadn't been given my file. I was well prepared in what I wanted to say, but this woman I had been given to translate for me didn't install much confidence in me. After hearing her, as she said her oath before the court, I was now going to be thrown to the lions again. Lots of questions by the 3 judges, both the French and the English giving my translator problems, and the 3 judges had to repeat themselves to her a number of times. What chance did I have? It was if I would not be allowed to say what had never been said, but on paper they had looked to have followed all the rules. Having someone by your side who couldn't do the job, and she started getting mad at me. I would have been better trying to tell them in French myself. At least I understood the English part of it. Then it was Madame Landel, the prosecutor's turn to interrogate me, and she was not nice. It was so hard with the translator I had been given to even understand what she wanted. She was pushing and pushing the overtaking, the obviously important thing they had to find me guilty of in order to scapegoat me for the deaths. I was under the impression that they had all seen and taken the time to look at my file. I was trying to tell her that police photos clearly show the wheel hub on the left back wheel, not right back wheel. And then, by the 28th of April 2016, the wheel hub was then on the right wheel, according to Maurice Pascal. Then that and the front bumper vanished by March 2017, so no one else was able to analyse them. In the end, I had to walk over and show her the photos. I will never ever forget the look on the woman's face. This vicious, clever, probably well-experienced prosecutor had a look of horror, a disbelief in what was there in front of her eyes. There was no denying the fact, and these were police photos. One of the photos still had me trapped in the car, but she still dismissed it and carried on with her vicious interrogation and attack. At one point she said, "So are you saying that someone took the wheel hub from the left and put it on the right?" I said yes. I thought, well, it couldn't have bloody moved itself. And you are thinking that too, but you're still gonna have me. I was standing having to look at this black insignia in front of me, of the scales of justice in perfect balance. That's funny. Here I am, presenting police evidence, and they just ignore it. How balanced is that? They seem to all piss in the same pot, even in the appeal court. I was then told to sit back down, and now the frustrated Geraldine Dauphine, just like Scarlett in Gone with the Wind, she was about to put on a performance. She began to give her performance of personally attacking me and my character. Not that I could understand much. The woman sat next to me, supposedly translating, shushed me when I asked her what she was saying in her dramatic performance. Then Raposo spoke for the Allianz Insurance Company, saying how the company couldn't keep paying money out, agreeing with me being guilty. So please don't believe all the expensive advertising and PR stunts they give. They have money for that, but not a client wrongly charged with double murder. They couldn't even find me an English-speaking solicitor. Ironically enough, you will find Allianz's logo on the sponsor board at the Paralympics. Wonder how much that costs in sponsorship. You would do more good looking after your clients that have become disabled through no fault of their own, exposing the truth instead of pretending that you actually care about a disabled person. I would welcome and invite you to explain. It would be nice to hear the reason your duty of care was so, Shall I say bad for one of your policyholders, now a disabled one? Then I was invited to speak, which lasted all of 10 minutes before the whole charade was brought to a close. I went over to the judges to show them my file, the one I knew they had received in January 2020. The judges had never seen it. See how the game continues and is played out? They had the file since January 2020. It was now October 2020. Who signed for it? Who had hidden it? And maybe it had been conveniently lost in this expensive bureaucracy of bullshit. The judge concluded that they would make their decision at a later date, and we were to return on the 23rd of November 2020. I never got the pleasure of being back in front of the insignia of the balanced scales of justice, which they all have all over the place in these so-called establishments of justice. Maybe their scales are balanced with lies, cover-ups, loss of vital evidence, targeting the vulnerable and not seeking the truth. It's been the same throughout history, but now they add insult to injury by pretending every person has the same rights in this system. In my experience, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the little factor of truth is often extinct, whitewashed, ignored, avoided, camouflaged, hidden, and purposely sabotaged to allow their justice system to function the way they dictate it should. Honesty, integrity, and humanity not being part of the somewhat corrupt, elitist bullshit circus. The second bout of lockdowns resulted in my sentence being posted, with no security or sign for. How do they know I even received it? The information again violating my right to understand, because it was in French with no copy in English. There were a few lines saying a translate copy would follow.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of love. Walk on